فرأس العلم تقوى الله حقا وليس بأن يقال لقد رأست.
ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة، خلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، اتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, to proceed, the best of speech is the speech of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the best of guidance is the guidance of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the worst of all affairs are those affairs that have newly been added into the religion. Every newly added affair in the religion is an innovation, and every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance is in the fire of hell. By the praise of Allah, we continue tonight with our reading and commentary on فوائد مستنبطة من قصة يوسف, benefits derived from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. In our previous discussion, we read some of what the author mentioned regarding the second incident in which dreams are mentioned in this surah. And that is when Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, he entered the prison. Allah Jalla wa Ala said, وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ قال أحدهما إني أراني أعصر خمرا قال الآخر إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين. They both told their dreams, and Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam responded to them. But before he actually told them the interpretation of the dream, he took time to call them to Allah. The author said, وَمِنْ كَمَالِ يُوسُف وَنُصْحِهِ وفطنته العجيبة أنهما لما قص عليه رؤياهما تأنى في تعبيرها ووعدهما بتعبيرها أسرع وقت فقال لا يأتيكما طعام ترزقانه إلا نبأتكما بتأويله قبل أن يأتيكما. From the perfection of Yusuf and from his devotion to the benefit of people and from his insight, his amazing insight, is that when they told their dreams to him, he took his time to interpret the dreams. Shaykh is saying that although he knew the interpretation of the dreams immediately, he did not immediately give the answer. He took his time. وَوَعَدَهُمَا بِتَعْبِيرِهَا, and he gave them a promise that he's going to interpret these dreams بِأَسْرَعِ وَقْتٍ, in the quickest time possible. And then he said to them, no food shall come to you that you will be provided with, except that I'm going to give you the interpretation. I'm going to inform you of the interpretation of this dream, this vision, before the food comes to you. And for those of you who are trying to follow along, we are still with chapter 1. We are with chapter 1. We've finished the introduction. We are with chapter 1, reading the first set of dreams. Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, the author said, فَوَعَدَهُمَا بِتَعْبِيرِهَا قَبْلَ أَوَّلِ طَعَامٍ يَأْتِيهِمَا مِنْ خَارِجِ السِّجْنِ لِيَطْمَئِنَّا وَيَشْتَاقَا إِلَى تَعْبِيرِهَا وليتمكن من دعوتهما ليكون أدعى لقبول الدعوة إلى الله لأن الدعوة لهما إلى الله أعظم من تعبير رؤياهما. The author said, so he gave them a promise that he's going to interpret the dreams before the first instance of a meal, before the first meal that comes from outside the prison, such that they will both feel safe and tranquil, and feel eager to receive the interpretation of the dream, and such that he will find an opportunity to call them, meaning to Allah, because this is going to have a greater effect, more of a chance, more of a likelihood that they will accept the call to Allah, because calling them to Allah is more important than interpreting their dreams. There's a number of things here that should be observed, things to take note of. Number one, that they have a right as questioners, as seekers of knowledge, to be taught and to have their questions answered. And Allah Ta'ala has a right. The right of Allah is that He be worshipped alone without partners. And Yusuf has a right to ask for help, given that he has been wrongfully jailed. And what I mean by ask for help is Yusuf found out through the dream, as soon as he heard it, that one of these two men is going to be freed. Not only freed, he's going to return to the service of his master, a man with lofty station, a man in government, a man that could potentially have a say in the release of Yusuf from wrongful imprisonment, wrongful detention. So Yusuf has a right, and they have a right. But above all, Allah has a right. This shows us that people of ihsan, people who have reached that tremendous and lofty level that Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam has reached, part of their ihsan is to know what comes first and what comes last. Imagine if a man in the shoes of Yusuf, with that much knowledge of the interpretation of dreams, heard these dreams. He said to these two men, I will not interpret your dreams until you give me a promise that you will speak to your master, have me released from prison. Meaning that that's the price for the interpretation of the dream. Would he have as much of an effect? Would his words be so profound and memorable when he calls them afterwards to Allah Ta'ala? The answer is obviously no. But Yusuf, on the contrary, he used so many different methods to ensure that the right of Allah Ta'ala gets fulfilled. And this teaches us something. That not every time someone asks you for knowledge, should you give them the answer to the knowledge that they required or they asked about immediately. Rather, sometimes you have to teach them what is far more important first, that they did not know to ask about, before you give them the knowledge that they have indeed requested. So Yusuf begins by giving them a promise. And it's interesting how he linked it to food. Because in prison, meal times are set. And because they are set, people get into a habit of being patient. They don't get hungry ahead of time. They are programmed to wait for the food. So by telling them that the interpretation of the dream is going to come before the next meal time, he is basically connecting it for them such that they feel at peace, they feel tranquil, they feel ready to listen to Yusuf all the way until the next meal time, no matter how much time he takes to interpret these dreams, giving them the promise that I will indeed inform you of the interpretation of these dreams. The Shaykh said, فَدَعَاهُمَا إِلَى اللَّهِ بِأَمْرَيْنِ. So he called them to Allah with two things. أَحَدُهُمَا بِحَالِهِ وَمَا هُوَ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْوَصْفِ الْجَمِيلِ الذي أوصله إلى هذه الحال الرفيعة. First of these methods by which he called them to Allah is by his status, by his fare, by his way, and how he is upon beautiful descriptions that have raised him to such lofty status. And that is in his statement, بِقَوْلِهِ ذَلِكُمَا مِمَّا عَلَّمَنِي رَبِّي. That I informed the both of you is from that which my Lord has taught me. This is another assurance that the interpretation of the dream is indeed coming. And he is assuring them that I have the knowledge and my Lord has taught me this knowledge. At the same time, it is a segue into the topic of da'wah, where he begins informing them about Allah, letting them know that it is Allah that gave him this knowledge, reminding them that he has no knowledge of his own besides that knowledge which Allah Azza wa Jal given him. Then he explains how he got this knowledge. He said, إِنِّي تَرَكْتُ مِلَّةَ قَوْمٍ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ كَافِرُونَ. Indeed, I have abandoned the religion of a people who do not believe in Allah, and they are disbelievers in the hereafter. This is the first concept of da'wah that he is explaining to them, the concept of a tawheed. And notice how he connected the tawheed to the belief in the hereafter. In other words, if you believe in Allah, you also ought to believe in meeting Him, believe in being held accountable, believe in the resurrection, believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall question you when you return to Him, tabarak wa ta'ala. These two beliefs are key to the rectification of a human. Believing in Allah, the one that will hold him to account, believing in the final day, the appointment upon which he will be held to account. That is sufficient to rectify the affair of a human. And then he linked it, as you can see, to his knowledge. He said, this is from that which my Lord has taught me, because إِنِّي تَرَكْتُ مِلَّةَ قَوْمٍ. This has the effect of explaining what came before it. This teaches us something. It teaches us that from the greatest of means and the most powerful of reasons that lead to the attainment of knowledge is a tawheed, is believing in Allah, abandoning shirk, all of its types. Have left the religion of a people who do not believe in Allah. They are disbelievers in the hereafter. When you leave the religions of falsehood, you leave a shirk, you come to a tawheed, you purify your tawheed and strengthen it. It is a reason for Allah Azza wa Jal to bless you with knowledge. The foundation, fundamental pillar, the central pillar of knowledge is being upon the tawheed. This is one of the reasons why the prophets, all of them, having come with tremendous knowledge, they begin by teaching a tawheed. The rest of the knowledge is not going to benefit anyone without a tawheed. The rest of the knowledge is not even going to unlock its secrets to the hearts, the listeners, in the absence of a tawheed. And then he explains, after he mentioned what he abandoned, what he's actually following. He said, وَاتَّبَعْتُ مِلَّةَ آبَائِي. I followed the religion of my parents, my forefathers. Ibrahim wa Ishaq wa Yaqub. This is his lineage. He is Yusuf, the son of Yaqub, the son of Ishaq, the son of Ibrahim. And this teaches us that there is no problem, there is no sin in mentioning one's ancestry upon good, upon khair, for a valid reason. Yusuf is not showing off his lineage, but rather he is showing that he's upon the correct religion by mentioning these famous prophets, these messengers of Allah, these men who are known for guidance, and revealing that he is from that lineage, following that religion. He is upon guidance that has descended from Allah upon the heart of these prophets. مَا كَانَ لَنَا أَن نُشْرِكَ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Surely we never had the right to associate any partners with Allah in anything. ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْنَا وَعَلَى النَّاسِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ. That is from the bounty of Allah upon us and upon mankind, but the majority of mankind do not show gratitude. Here, Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam is explaining how the religion that he is upon, the religion of his forefathers, is a religion that abolishes shirk, gives no one the right to associate any partners with Allah in any matter, big or small. But the right of Allah Azza wa Jal to be worshipped alone, to be worshipped exclusively, is a right that is upheld in that religion and enforced to the full extent possible. Additionally, he mentions a concept that is of critical importance to the person of da'wah. A concept, as we can see, that is befitting to be explained on day one. If you wish, class 101 of da'wah, you explain this concept to the people that you are calling to Islam. What is that concept? He said, the majority of people are not grateful. The majority of people are not grateful. Later on in the same discussion he's having with them, he says, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. However, the majority of the people do not know. As you can see, Yusuf is reminding them subtly and casually, but very clearly, that there is no benefit in following the majority of the people. It is as if Yusuf recognizes that what he is calling them to is rare. What he is inviting them to is something that not many people are upon. That wherever they turn, wherever they look around them, most of the people are going to be upon a different religion, not what Yusuf is calling to. So he's reminding them that do not be deceived by the numbers. Rather, follow the truth, regardless of the numbers. For the majority of the people are ungrateful to their Lord, and the majority of the people are ignorant. They do not have knowledge. This is a fundamental principle in da'wah, is when you are calling people, to remind them the truth is not recognized by numbers. What benefits you is not known by how many adherents it has. Sheer numbers is no indication of the correctness of a creed and the correctness of a methodology. The author said, الأمر الثاني دعاهما بالبرهان الحقيقي الفطري. فقال, the second thing is he invited them to Allah with proofs from reality and proofs from the fitrah, that which is inherently known to us, that Allah Azza wa Jal has instilled in us, and we are born with it, inherent goodness. فقال, so he said, يا صاحبي السجن أرباب متفرقون خير بالله الواحد القهار. All my two companions in the prison are separate deities, disagreeing deities. Better for Allah, singular, the overwhelming, the irresistible. This is amazing that Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam would use these two names when talking about Allah, Al-Wahid, Al-Qahar. And it is amazing that Yusuf is also allowing them to open up their eyes and examine what is around them and what they have seen in the society. People worship different deities. Some people worship the sun, some worship the moon, some worship trees, some people worship a rock, some people worship the angels, the prophets, some people worship animals like a cow. So what Yusuf is basically telling them, these differing deities, why are they differing? Because everyone is claiming to be supreme. Everyone is claiming to be the best. All the adherents of these different religions are saying our religion is the way and you all are upon misguidance. These religions that have clashing belief systems, they are in disagreement. They have clashing rites and rituals and acts of worship that do not mesh with one another. These religions, each of which touts to be the truth, the undisputable truth, and at the same time contradict one another. Is all of that better for Allah, Al-Wahid, Al-Qahhar? Al-Wahid is one of the names of Allah Azza wa Jal that comes from singularity. And what it means when we say Allah is Al-Wahid is we're saying that He is singular. Singular in what sense? Singular in every sense. Singular in the sense that there's nothing like Him. Singular in the sense that there is none as great as He is. Singular in the sense that there is none as powerful as Allah. Singular in the sense that none knows what Allah knows. Singular in the sense that none has His descriptions of praiseworthy traits, attributes that are at the peak of loftiness. Singular in the fact that only He is the creator. Everything besides Him is created. Singular in that He has no partners. Singular in that He has no spouse. Singular such that He has no children. Singular such that He does not need help or aid from anyone. Singular in that everything in existence needs Him to continue to function or even just exist. He is singular in every sense. Such, it follows that the next name mentioned would be Al-Qahhar, the irresistible, the overwhelming. Because Allah cannot be singular unless He is irresistible. لا يكون الواحد إلا قهارا. People of knowledge said, one that is singular must by default be irresistible. Whatever He wants shall come to pass. No one can resist what Allah Azza wa Jal wants. Otherwise, He would not be singular. If He could be resisted, that means automatically that there is one that is equal to Him. So the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal is singular means that there is no one to resist His will Azza wa Jal. He is the overwhelming. Whatever He chooses to do shall get done. Whatever He decrees shall come to pass. Whatever Allah wills is what's going to occur in spite of, despite the efforts of everything in existence. If they were to choose to oppose Him, what Allah Azza wa Jal chooses would still come to pass. Describing Allah as such reminds these two men that nothing else that is being worshipped has these kinds of descriptions. Nothing else that is being worshipped is even remotely near the perfection that is being attributed to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. This is something that is obvious to anyone with eyes, anyone with ears, anyone with the slightest amount of intellect. He goes on to say, مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِهِ إِلَّا أَسْمَاءً. You are worshipping besides Him nothing but names. And really, here he puts a nail in the coffin, if I'm allowed to use this expression, of the argument, such that the argument is sealed and finished. What you are worshipping besides Allah are just names. In other words, what makes this particular rock, this particular statue, of any exceptional value? Why is it different from that rock? Why is it different from that statue? Why is this one considered a deity, a god, but the other one is just a piece of rock? And this is the reality of shirk. Shirk is nothing but nomenclature, just names, just labels that are assigned without any valid reason for their assignment. When you get a piece of metal and you give it to an ironsmith and you tell them to fabricate a statue of this deity, and they start shaving it and polishing it and breaking it and so on and so forth, you end up with a beautiful polished statue. Beautiful in their eyes, not in ours. What made this particular piece of metal all of a sudden worthy of worship, where they make sujood and they give offerings and they touch it seeking blessings? What reason is there to worship it, besides the fact that they have simply chosen to and attached a name to it? So this is the reality of shirk. It is nothing but the undeserved assignment of names, titles, things being worshipped besides Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Then he says, سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ. سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ. Names that you and your forefathers before you have assigned. And here Yusuf is exposing yet Another barrier that stands in the way of the acceptance of the truth for most people. The first barrier he mentioned was following the majority, being deceived by the numbers of people upon the falsehood. The second one that he is referring to here is following one's forefathers. Because many times when a person finds their parents upon falsehood, they're going to follow them upon that falsehood. Whether they found their parents to be Christians, or they found their parents to be Jews, or they found their parents to be Magians, or what have you, they will just follow their parents blindly into the abyss. Yusuf is saying, be cautious, because even your parents, even your forefathers, generations before you, may have themselves fallen into something that makes no sense, such as assigning a name and a title, specific powers to an object without any right to do so, without any qualifying description in that object that makes it worthy of that title and thus worthy of the worship. He said, ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان. Allah has not sent down with this any proof. Sultan means power, authority. And this is a reference to the power and authority of the revelation of Allah upon the hearts. This is why it's called a sultan. Many times when sultan is mentioned in the Quran, what is referred to here is the knowledge that has come down from above. So he's calling it sultan because of the power that it has over the hearts. Here, Yusuf is again directing their attention to the facts. What are the facts? None of these religions that you are upon, that your forefathers are upon, have a shred of proof attached to the revelation of Allah. All of these religions are man-made. Contrasting that with what he is upon, following the religion of righteous men, guided men, who are connected to Allah. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, Ishaq alayhi salatu wassalam, Yaqub alayhi salatu wassalam. In other words, he's saying, compare and contrast what I'm upon, following Allah's revelation that has been revealed upon these great prophets. You are following something that has absolutely no proof from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Basically exposing the fact that there are religions that have been revealed, there are religions that have been invented, that have been made up. They're basically homegrown, land-based, not ones that have come down from above. And then he said, إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا إِلَّهِ. Surely the rule is only for Allah. أَمَرَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهِ. And he commanded that you worship none but he. ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ. That is the upright religion. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But the majority of the people do not know. Here, Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam gave a succinct and beautiful explanation of the religion of the truth, of principles of calling to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, showing us that da'wah knows no limits. Da'wah can even be offered within the walls of a prison cell, offered to even the criminals who are behind bars for things that they have committed, atrocities that they have done. Da'wah is even to be given to those who we know are going to end in a bad way, such as the man that Yusuf is about to interpret his dream and tell him that you're going to be crucified, you're going to be killed and left out in public. Even he deserves da'wah, deserves being called to Allah. You never know, he might die upon at-tawheed. The author said, may Allah have mercy upon him, فإن من توحد بالكمال من كل وجه وبالقهر للعالم العلوي والسفلي المستحق للألوهية الكاملة الذي خلق الخلق لعبادته وأمرهم بها وله الحكم على عباده في الدنيا والآخرة هو الذي لا تنبغي العبادة إلا له وحده. Indeed, the one who is singular in his perfection from every aspect, from every angle, the one who is overwhelming the entirety of creation, irresistible is his will to all those besides him, the one who overwhelms the world of the heavens and the world of the dunya, the one who deserves complete deification, the one who is described with the perfect attributes of deity, of godship, the one who created all the creation to worship him and commanded them to worship him. And he is the one that alone rules over his creation in the dunya and the akhirah. He is the one that worship is deserved deserved to, meaning he is the only one that deserves to be worshipped. وحده دون المعبودات الناقصة المتفرقة التي كل قوم يدعون إلهيتها. Besides all these items that are being worshipped, despite their deficiencies, despite their flaws, despite the fact that they are differing and separate, and each people are claiming that they have aspects of descriptions of a deity. وَلَيْسَ فِيهَا مِنْ مَعَانِي الْإِلَهِيَّةِ شَيْءٍ. And none of the descriptions of a deity are found in them. Take, for example, that you call upon them, they don't answer. That you speak to them, they don't hear. That you are in front of them, they don't see. Some of these statues, you can push it over and it'll fall on its back or fall on its face, and it cannot even help itself and get back up. All of this is clear signs for those who have sound minds. But none of these objects being worshipped besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have any right whatsoever to be worshipped. He said, وَلَا اسْتِحْقَاقٍ, nor do they deserve worship. وَإِنَّمَا هِيَ أَسْمَاءٌ اصْطَلَحُوا عَلَى تَسْمِيَتِهَا أَسْمَاءٌ بِلَا مَعَانِي. Rather, they are names that they have come to agree to name these objects, names without any realities to back them. ورأى صلى الله عليه وسلم دعوتهما إلى الله أولى بالتقديم على تفسير رؤياهما وأنفع لهما ولغيرهما. So it was his opinion, may Allah's greetings and exaltations be upon him, that calling them to Allah was more important and a priority over explaining their dreams, more beneficial to them and to others than them. Here, the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, mentions how Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam recognized the priority of calling them to Allah first. And after this is when Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam requested from the one that is going to live to mention him to his master. There's something very interesting in the interpretation of these two dreams. That is, that one dream was glad tidings for Yusuf, glad tidings for the man that saw it. The other dream was very bad news for the person who saw it. That is the person that is going to be killed. And that he's not only going to be killed, but he's going to be a public spectacle. And his body is going to be left out in public for a while until birds come to eat from his head. And one must wonder here at the divine decree, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the elements of this story so intertwined that every aspect of it plays a role in the life of Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. Because we know from the story that the man who was with Yusuf in the prison and then later on was released ended up forgetting about Yusuf and forgetting to talk to his master about Yusuf. Yet, there was always this thing in the back of his mind that will come back at the right time to remind him about Yusuf. That is, that he interpreted his dream correctly, that he interpreted the dream of the man that got crucified and was made a spectacle of extremely accurately. And this is something that is so shocking that it can sear into the memory of a person. Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it that this will become a trigger that can remind the man of Yusuf when Allah wants him to remember. This is one thing. The other thing is, what's the benefit for that man to get a dream informing him that he's going to be crucified? that he's going to be killed and left out for the birds to eat him. Because we know these visions are from Allah. So this could fall under the category of an admonishment and a warning, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets him know that his crimes have caught up to him, and as such he shall face consequences. As such, it can be a beneficial reminder, so that if he's going to lose the dunya, well, at least don't lose your akhirah as well. So this would be the benefit of such a dream. There are further benefits in these two dreams and in the interaction between Yusuf and the two inmates. And I advise all of you to dwell on this further and extract as many of these benefits as you can. We move to chapter 2, الفصل الثاني. وأما رؤيا الملك فإنه رأى 7 بقرات سمان يأكلهن 7 بقرات عجاف 7 سنبلات خضر يأكلهن ويستولي عليهن 7 سنبلات يابسات ضعيفات. قالته وجمع لها كل من يظن فيه المعرفة فلم يكن عند أحد منهم علم بتعبيرها وقالوا أضغاث أحلام وما نحن بتأويل الأحلام بعالمين. And as for the vision of the king, indeed he saw 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 emaciated, skinny cows. 7 سنبلات خضر, and 7 green stalks of wheat being taken over by 7 dry, weak stalks of wheat. So it overwhelmed him, and he gathered for this everyone that he thinks has knowledge. Yet none of them had the knowledge of its interpretation, and they said, أضغاث أحلام. These are random tidbits of dreams mashed together. And surely we have no knowledge of the interpretation of dreams. Benefit number 1 that we can take from this is how knowledge is lost upon those who are not qualified for it. We are talking about the same dream that was the reason for Yusuf being freed from prison. We're talking about the same dream that was the reason for Yusuf's reputation to be restored. We're talking about the same dream that was reason for Yusuf to be elevated to the position of a counselor to the king. We're talking about the same dream that caused Yusuf to have a position, an official position in government, along with the trust of the king. We're talking about a dream that is basically a treasure trove of benefits, a gold mine, if you wish, of benefits. And yet, those who have no knowledge, what did they say about it? They said, أضغاث أحلام, random tidbits of dreams mashed together. And this shows you, my brothers and sisters, that it is very common for those who do not know to look at knowledge with disdain, to look at the science of tafsir with disdain, to look at the sciences of hadith with disdain, to look at the sciences of language, its grammar and morphology with disdain, to look at the sciences of history and the knowledge of the biographies of the narrators of hadith with ridicule and having no respect for them. All of this is an effect of ignorance. Here is a story in which this gem passed right under their noses, and Allah Azza wa Jal did not give any of them the knowledge of how to interpret this dream, because Allah saved it for Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. And in this is another lesson, and that is, if Allah Azza wa Jal wants to extract you from the belly of difficulty, He can do so in the most subtle of ways, ways that are beyond the imagination. Who would think that the king would see a dream and no one present would be able to interpret it? And then someone would remember about Yusuf, although he had forgotten him for years. And then Yusuf would be the one to interpret the dream, and that's how he would come out of prison. Who would have thought that? Had it not been for the plan of Allah, the ultimate planner, تبارك وتعالى. شيخ said وبعد هذا تفطن الذي خرج من السجن لحالة يوسف وما هو عليه من العلم العظيم، العلم بالتعبير، وتفطن لوصيته التي أنساه الشيطان ذكر ربه بحكمة قد فصح أمرها، وأنه لا يخرج من السجن إلا بعد اشتهاره وتميزه العظيم على الناس كلهم بتعبير رؤيا الملك. طلب هذا الرجل من الملك أن يرسله إلى يوسف وإنه كفيل بمعرفة تفسيرها، فلما جاء يوسف قال له يا يوسف أيها الصديق أفتنا في 7 بقرات سمان يأكلهن 7 عجاف و7 سنبلات خضر وأخرى يابسات. Sheikh said, it is at this moment that the one that escaped, that came out of prison, was released from prison, remembered the affair of Yusuf and what he was upon in terms of great knowledge of the interpretation of dreams. And he remembered the entrustment that Yusuf entrusted to him. Mention me to your master, he had said to him. And thing that the shaitan made him forget, or wisdom that is now clear. The wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now clear. One would think, why didn't the man remember? So that Yusuf could be released immediately upon this man's release. Now we know why. Because Allah did not want Yusuf to be released because someone put in a good word for him. Allah wanted Yusuf to be released because his freedom is now earned, deserved, and his reputation is fully restored and his innocence is established beyond the shadow of a doubt. Not only so, but he will be released not only as innocent and wrongfully imprisoned, but also released as a scholar and a man of great honesty and chastity. His qualities will become known and public in an affair that shall reverberate through the kingdom, and people shall talk about it. He will emerge from the depth and darkness of prison to the light, the spotlight of fame and eminence in position with the people of the land. The Shaykh is saying that he will not emerge from the prison except after becoming famous and becoming distinguished, such that the king will see that this is a man that is different from all of the people. And so this man requested from the king to send him. He said in the Quran, أَنَا أُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِتَأْوِيلِهِ فَأَرْسِلُونَ, I will inform you. He spoke with surety, with absolute certainty. I will bring you the interpretation of this dream. Why is he so certain? Because he's tried Yusuf. Not tried him once, but tried him twice, along with what he'd seen from the characters and mannerisms and perfection of Yusuf's worship, Yusuf's behavior, Yusuf's strength of character, his generosity, his overall ihsan. So he speaks with confidence in the court of the king. I will inform you of its interpretation, so send me. فَأَرْسِلُونَ. He goes into prison and he says, Yusuf, أيها الصديق. Again, showing great good manners. First time, they said to Yusuf, إِنَّا نَرَاكَ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Now, the second time, he's saying to him, Yusuf, O you who are extremely truthful. أفتنا في 7 بقرات سمان يأكلهن 7 عجاف و7 سنبلات خضر وأخرى يابسات. Give us fatwa, answer us, regarding 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 skinny emaciated cows, and 7 green stalks, and others that are dry. Well, there's a question to be asked here, right? And that is, why is the dream of the king being repeated word for word in the Quran? We know that the Quran is at the peak and pinnacle of eloquence. There is no repetition in the Quran without reason, such that someone could say, forming a question for us to ponder over, why not just say, he repeated the dream of the king, instead of Allah mentioning the dream of the king all over again, word for word? It appears to me that there's a benefit in this, and that is, that it is one of the etiquettes of dream interpretation that if you're going to send your dream forth with someone to get it interpreted, is that the person must use your words and not paraphrase what you're saying. This is why the man narrated to Yusuf the dream word for word, exactly how the king said it. The man said it to Yusuf, word for word. Nothing moved forward, nothing moved back, nothing much mentioned before the other. This is from the etiquettes of proper and correct dream interpretation. If you're going to take someone's dream to a dream interpreter to have it interpreted for them, make sure you use their words verbatim, exactly as they mentioned. This is more likely to result in a correct interpretation. Then the author said, فَإِنَّ الْمَلِكَ وَالنَّاسَ مَعَهُ مُتَشَوِّقُونَ والناس معه أرسلوني إليك لتفسرها لهم وهم بانتظار ذلك متشوقين إليه غاية التشوق. For indeed the king and the people with him have sent me to you such that you will interpret it for them. And they are waiting for this and very excited to hear the interpretation. ولهذا قال لعلي أرجع إلى الناس لعلهم يعلمون, such that perhaps I can return to the people so that they will learn, they will come to know. The people here is obviously not a reference to all the people. It is a reference to the who's who of the king's court. I'm having an issue with my connection. Is there a difference in the sound quality, or we can proceed, inshallah? Does it appear that the sound quality has reduced, or are we still good to go? Barakallahu feekum. So he explained to Yusuf the affair of the people, how they are waiting, how they're eager to learn what it is that has caused the king anxiety and worried him and was heavy on his mind. شيخ في الحال فسرها يوسف صلى الله عليه وسلم زاده مع التفسير حسن العمل بها وحسن التدبير. On the spot, Yusuf interpreted it, and along with that, he gave them plan of action on how to use this information that is found in the dream for the benefit of the people and to the maximum extent possible. In other words, Yusuf went above and beyond. Not only did he interpret the dream, but furthermore, he gave them his advice. What would I do with this information if I were to find it? There's something to wonder about here. That is, why did Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam not make any demands and say, I want to be released from prison first? Why did Yusuf not berate the man and say, now you remember me, now that you need me again? Why did Yusuf not say to him, go away? You couldn't even remember to put in a word for me, although I had asked you to do so. Now you want to come and ask me for something. And the answer is, and Allah knows best, that Yusuf is on a whole different level of being at peace with the qadr of Allah. He's not looking at the shortcomings of this man and how he forgot about him. He's looking at the decree of his Lord, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, trusting that Allah Azza wa Jal is the ultimate plan. And without hesitation, he generously gave from the knowledge that he has. And he explained exactly what the dream means. So he mentioned, فأخبرهم أن البقر السمان والسنابل السبع الخضرات هي سنون رخاء وخصب متواليات تتقدم على السنين المجدبات، وأن البقر العجاف والسنابل اليابسات سنون جدب تليها، وأن بعد هذه السنين المجدبات عام فيه يغاث الناس وفيه يعصرون. Inform them that the fat cows and the 7 green stalks are years of plentifulness, years of fruitfulness that are in succession, one after the other, that shall precede before the years of drought, the years of hardship, the years of thirst. And that the 7 cows that are emaciated and skinny in the 7 dry stalks are years of drought that shall immediately follow them. And that after these years of drought, there shall come a year in which the people will be saved by tremendous rain. And not only so, they will begin to juice the fruits. الشيخ said وإنه ينبغي لهم في السنين المخصبات أن ينتهزوا الفرصة ويعدوا العدة للسنين الشديدات فيزرعون زروعا هائلة أزيد بكثير من المعتاد، ولهذا قال تزرعون 7 سنين دأبا. And that it is befitting for them in the years of plentifulness, the years of rain, to take advantage of the opportunity, prepare, get ready for the years of drought, the difficult years, and try to plant the land far more than you normally do on an average year. For this reason, he said, تزرعون 7 سنين دأبا. A da'ab is putting in serious work, regular work, committed work. ومن المعلوم أن جميع السنين يزرع الناس، لكنه أراد منهم أن يزرعوا زروعا كثيرة ويبذلوا قواهم في كل ما يقدرون عليه، وأنهم يحتاطون في الغلات إذا حصلت بالتحصين والاقتصاد، فقال فما حصدتم فذروه في سنبله إلا قليلا مما تأكلون. And it is known that every year people will plant the crops. However, he wanted from them to put in further effort and plant even more than they normally do, and to put in the maximum effort that they can into this, and that they should also be careful with regards to the harvest, and that they should try to protect it. And this is why he said, so whatever you harvest, leave it in its stalks, except for the little that you eat. يحفظ الحاصلات من الزرع حفظا تسلم به من الفساد والسوس بأن تبقى في سنابلها. Meaning, preserve, protect, harvest in a way that they will be protected from going bad, protected from parasites, by leaving them in their stocks. ويقتصدون في هذه المدة مدة الرخاء فلا يسرفوا في الإنفاق. That they should be moderate in how much they eat, they consume from the grains in this period, the period of what? Of the 7 years of plentifulness. بل يأكلون القليل ويحفظون الكثير. Rather, they should eat as little as possible and preserve and protect and save for the future as much as possible. وإن بعد هذه السنين المصيبات سيأتي عليكم 7 سنين مجدبات شديدات تشمل الديار المصرية وما حولها. That after these years of plentifulness, there will come upon you 7 years of drought that are extremely difficult, that will affect the lands of Egypt and the lands that surround it. وأنها تأكل ما قدم لها مما حفظ في سنين الخصب إلا قليلا مما تحصنون. Years that are so severe, they will consume everything that you've prepared for them except for a little bit of that which you are extremely careful about. ووجه المناسبة أنه كما تقدم أن الرؤيا تعبر بحال رأيها. Now the Sheikh is going to explain how the dream is going to be picked apart. He said the connection between these symbols and the interpretation is, as we mentioned before, that a dream is going to be interpreted based upon the affair of the person who saw the dream. In other words, if this was the dream of a farmer, it would have a different meaning. But because this is the dream of the king, it has this meaning. For Yusuf, alayhi salam, he took this into consideration. He said, والمناسبات المتعلقة بها كالرأي لها الملك الذي تتعلق به أركان الرعية وأمورها, and with the associated things associated to the dream. Like in this case, the fact that the king saw it, and the king is one who the affairs of the land and the affairs of the kingdom are associated to. ولهذا كانت رؤياه ليست خاصة له. For this reason, it is interpreted that the dream is not something specific to him, بل تشمل الناس والرعية. Rather, it is something that affects all the people that are under his charge, under his care. وجه المناسبة في تفسير البقرات والسنابل بالسنين ظاهر في البقر من وجهين. And as for the connection between the cows and the stalks and the years is apparent from two angles. Number one, I'm going to skip the Arabic if you don't mind because we are tight on time. But they are the ones that usually are used for the plowing of the land. And the plowing of the land, the crops, and the things that follow the crops are a result of whether a year is a year of drought or a year of rain. Second connection is that cows in particular are from those types of animals that are either fattened or thinned, become skinny based on the effect of the rain or the lack of the rain. So if it is raining a lot and all sorts of plants and vegetation is growing, cows become fat. And the opposite is also true. The same can be said for the stalks of wheat. So when these symbols were repeated, 7 and 7, that look like they're from good years, it made it clear there's 7 years of plentifulness. And then 7 that looked like they are from difficult years, it made it clear that there's going to be what? 7 difficult years, years of drought. Because the cows were eating, skinny cows were eating the fat cows, we thus understood the order. Now someone can say, this is the last point we mentioned tonight, where did he get the 15th year? We understand about the first 7 years. We understand about the second 7 years. And that is 14 years. But Yusuf, in his interpretation of the dream, mentioned 15 years. He said there's a year that's going to come in which the people will be saved by tremendous rain. In fact, to the point that they shall begin squeezing their fruits to make juice, or squeezing their fruits. The author said, Shaykh Abdurrahman ibn Nasir said, he explained, he said, because second set of 7 was given a number. Number is 7. There's no point in giving it a number if it doesn't end. And it is known that 7 years of drought can only end suddenly if there's a year of tremendous rain. A year of rain that will revive the land, revive the crops, revive the animals, bring life back to the earth. This is how Yusuf alayhi discovered the 15th year. Because otherwise, 7 years of drought cannot end suddenly if it's just a regular year after them. A regular year where there's normal amounts of rain will begin to fix the situation, but it'll be so gradual that even the 8th year will be a year of great suffering. So the fact that the dream ends with 7 means that the end must be sudden, and it can only end suddenly by tremendous rain and great gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the slaves. What is amazing is that Shaykh al-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned that some of the Mufassirin went as far as to say perhaps Yusuf had external information. maybe Allah revealed something to him, and that he didn't see anyone that mentioned what he mentioned. Although it is crystal clear now that we've talked about it and explained it, how the dream is itself clarifying that there's a 15th year. But this is something that perhaps shows us how Allah Azza wa Jal gifts what He wants to whom He wants. That the Shaykh Abdul Rahman ibn Nasir al-Sa'di rahimahullah was given the gift of the interpretation of dreams. Ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to forgive the Shaykh, have mercy upon him, benefit us with his knowledge. That Allah Jalla wa Ala make what we have heard and studied beneficial for us and a reason for his forgiveness and mercy. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم إنا نسألك في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم تقبل منا واغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولمن له حق علينا ولمشايخنا وللمسلمين والمسلمات. صلى الله وسلم وبارك وأنعم على عبده ونبيه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.